He is the chairman and CEO of Barron Capital. You know him well here. And Ron, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming in this morning.
Thanks for inviting me.
We got a lot to talk about, but I think it's hard to not start with Elon Musk, because you have been a huge Elon Musk supporter, an investor in his companies for a very long time, a booster of everything he's doing. And yesterday, Walter Isaacson's book dropped on Elon Musk. So it's been in the headlines. It's been something people have been focused on. Walter himself will say, look, he's an incredible innovator, an incredible entrepreneur, but he has these demons that chase him. And the book lays this out in great detail, starting with his relationship with his father. What have you thought? I know you haven't had a chance to read it all. It's a big, long book. You just got it yesterday. But what do you think of the stories you've seen to this point that suggest Elon even knows these issues, he struggles with it, and can't quite get out of the way of being his own worst enemy? I mean, you've said that he is the key man. He's the reason you invest in these companies, and the biggest risk is if something were to happen to him.
So I met him in 2010, and it took me 4 years before we began to invest. In 2014 to 2016 is when we bought the stock. We made about 20 times on our investment there. And then in SpaceX, we've been investing in that since 2017. And we're one of the largest investors in SpaceX.
It's not a publicly traded company,
no,
but what about your valuation?
We have about $1.7 billion invested right now. Wow. It cost us $700 million. $400 million of that is me. On Tesla, we have 17.5 million shares. 4.5 million shares is me. So we've been an investor for a long time, so I obviously believe. Mm-hmm. And initially when we invested, it was making me crazy when I was seeing some of the things that he was doing, as much as I admired him. But I do think that, and I calmed myself down, and I said, yeah, I really deserve to make a lot of money by investing in this and by staying with it. And we deserve. And what I thought was that what the point that Walter made yesterday was that untethered, these things can happen, and if he was conventional, it would have never happened. So he's the guy who got us electric cars. He's the guy who got us to space. If he was a conventional person, he was in Saturday Night Live, and he said, hey, dude, do you think I'm a normal person? I got you electric cars, and I'm going to take you to Mars. Seriously, am I going to be normal? And he's a very funny, engaging, smart, incredibly hardworking person, And I don't remember. So one story. When I went to a dinner in East Hampton about 2-3 weeks ago, when David Rubenstein was interviewing Walter, and they sat me at the table with Walter right next to the stage, and then David interviewed him, and then they mentioned me 3 or 4 times in that, and then afterwards he said, Ron, the guy knows more than anyone else here about him. Why don't you say something? And I said, I can't say something. This is your show, and this is I'm not part of that. And
but you're here now, so what would you say?
Well, one fast story is, I agree with Walter. He has to be, untethered. And then in addition to that, when he was a child, he talked about all the problems he had with his dad. And he escaped from those. He would go home, and he would read the encyclopedia. Read the encyclopedia. That was his nickname from his mom, encyclopedia. And any question he knew it. So he had a photographic memory. And what amazes me about him now is every time you ask him, how do you do that? How do you know that? How do you know what these things cost? He knows everything. It's a photographic memory. He remembers stuff. And so he's focused on cost, trying to drive cost out of everything. Everyone else tries to make as much money as they can. He's focused on his mission, long term, which is to make planet habitable, and then also to, if something bad happens, to be able to keep humanity alive. So getting away from Elon for just a moment, we'll come back to him about SpaceX and Tesla. But first of all, I want to congratulate you and your firm for all the things you do for people and making them understand why stocks go up and down every day, with all the news, number one. And number two, how to invest and how to invest for the long term. And that's how you really make the most money, whether it's index funds or on occasion in mutual funds. And to be a little self-promotional, that there was an article last week on Bloomberg, and the article on Bloomberg talked about how Warren Buffett had made a bet with a group of hedge funds 15 years ago. And he said that he thought that net of fees, that an investment in an index fund would do better than an investment in a group of hedge funds. And he bet $1 million, which we go to charity, and he won the bet 5 years ago. And then Bloomberg was writing about that, and then they said, oh, by the way, to show how right Buffett was, there's one index which is better and harder to beat than all the others. It's called the QQQ. It's the large cap growth index. And he said that, and they said there's only one mutual fund in the United States in the past 5 years, 10 years, 15 years has done better than that index. That's Barron Partners Fund. That's me.
You are a long-term investor. You do look at things over the long haul. And
one more
way,
thing about
congratulations.
that if you, so an index is a great way for people to invest. And so if you had invested in 1992 when we started Barron Partners Fund, $10,000 in the index in the S&P, it'd now be worth $200,000. $10,000 to $200,000 invested in the index. Of course, you invested $10,000 in Barron Partners Fund, it'd be $900,000. But $200,000 is what you get in an index. And how do you know you're going to find someone like me as opposed to a firm like ours, which is better than any other mutual fund company?
Well, Ron, let's just get back to some of these questions with Elon, because I was there at the Barron conference last year, Barron Partners Conference, where you interviewed Elon. And you asked him on the spot. You said, hey, what are you going to do with Twitter to make sure that you don't get offended by some of the, not offended, I shouldn't say. Everybody gets offended on Twitter, and that's fair game. But you were concerned about anti-Semitic and hate issues that you thought were being amplified at the time. His answer to you, I think, satisfied you at that point. Do you still feel satisfied with that, especially given some of the stuff he's kind of dipped his toe into recently? Or you just think this is who he is, you got to take the good with the bad? I
think social media, he's probably finding it more difficult to manage than maybe even going to Mars. I mean, to deal with all the people and all of what they think is hate speech and what they think is anti. This guy has no way is he anti-Semitic. Right. I'm Jewish. The largest investor, Larry Ellison, in his firm happens to be, he says he's the wealthiest Jew in the world. He's Jewish. He's surrounded by advisors who are Jewish. That doesn't make you not anti-Semitic, but I've never seen anything that would indicate that he's anything but pro people who are talented, and religion is not one thing that enters into it. Not religion, not race. People work hard and people achieve.
It's interesting, though. You think Twitter and dealing with people and questions of free speech may be more complicated than trying to figure out how to go to Mars and put rockets into space.
Obviously, no one can figure out getting to Mars except for him. And because he can reuse these rockets over and over again. No one else has been able to do that. No one. So not China, not NASA, not Russia, not Visa, no one. So he does, and that's remarkable. So when other people cost to get to space is hundreds of millions of dollars, and we can get there for a fraction of that, so we can sell, because you can use a rocket over and over again instead of going to London and getting on a 747 and throwing it away one time. So here he uses over and over again, and it's amazing what he's done.
He's good at rockets.
Good at rockets.
Remember someone said that.
Good at satellites.
Said that to me in an interview.
What did you make of what the ADL said, though? Because we had Jonathan Greenblatt on the program, and he said he didn't believe he was anti-Semitic either. Nor do I, and I'm Jewish, by the way. But there are things, obviously, that
I know you're Jewish, actually.
No, but there are things on Twitter that I think you both of us would look at and not just find offensive, but I think would clearly be in the category of hate speech and things that should not be there.
Look, I'm not expert in that. I'm expert in companies. And what I do, we happen to have a small investment in Twitter, now X, $100 million. It's $65 million for a fund and $35 million for me personally. And he's made us so much money, I figured, and they told me we can make a lot in this, but, maybe we will, maybe we won't. I think it's a really laudable thing that he's trying to do, to give a forum where people can exchange ideas and real time and get the news real time. And he is being attacked mercilessly over and over again, and I think unfairly. But I'm not expert in that, but I will be when I get interviewed another time here when I want to talk about X. I don't want to talk about X now, but I think there's a good opportunity for that company. We'll see how hard it is to achieve. But I think the more interesting things right now are Tesla and SpaceX. And Tesla, so we've been an investor in. So Tesla is now at a similar stage where it was in 2014, 2015, when I was investing, 16, and they were doing 40,000 cars a year. They're now doing 1.8 million, on the way to 20 million. And they've been growing 50% a year, and this year they'll probably be up, 25, 30%. Next year, about the same. But there's a new car coming.
25-30% revenue?
No, units.
Or units, okay.
Units. And then they got this, the battery business, which is $6 billion a year, and that's going to be up triple over the next 3 years, and that's going to go up 30 times.
There's been a lot made over the UAW and the potential strike that is facing the big three automakers here. And what's been brought up is they have all of these EVs that they have to deal with. Their cost basis is quite a bit higher than Tesla's.
Way higher. So every time they sell an EV, they sell one fewer gasoline car. And the gasoline car they make money on, and the EVs they lose money on. The traditional OEMs are troubled right now, and I think ultimately, they're going to make metal, they're going to make the units, and ultimately they're going to buy software from Tesla. Tesla is going to be like Intel inside of a Microsoft computer. That's going to be Tesla. So Tesla is going to be everything that makes the car, all the inside is going to be Tesla. That's what's ultimately they're going to be licensed.
Are you buying any additional Tesla or SpaceX, or have you kind of maxed out where you feel comfortable with your fund, which is a diversified fund?
In the funds that I manage, I've been maxed out. We had, when the stock went up 20 times after we bought it, yeah. We sold for clients about a quarter of the shares. I didn't sell a share personally. I committed to the directors of our mutual funds. I only invest in mutual funds normally. I made an exception in this instance, and I said that I was the last in, I would last out, and I won't sell a single share for myself until we sell all of our client stock. And as far as buying more, I would buy more if I could, but I can't. And other guys at our firm are nibbling. They do things like, this is a great price. This is when they introduce this Model 2, they're going to have the cost half of what it is right now, half. And they're going to sell the car for, I don't know, maybe a third less than what it is right now, and there's credits. So this is Toyota almost bankrupted the whole automobile industry 20 years ago.
Ron, do you at the same time think that the big three have their work cut out for them? We're going to have UAW head on today, Sean Fain, and what the rank and file are asking for, given the uncertain future of whether Americans ever embrace non-Tesla EVs. I mean, would you think that the big three have their work cut out for them? Would you at least acknowledge that, do you think?
I haven't studied the big three relationships with the unions. I don't own them, although I really like Mary Barra, but I don't know.
Would you like to compete against Tesla?
I would hate to compete against Tesla. So Warren Buffett initially would say, said 20 years ago, 15 years ago, he said that he wouldn't invest in Tesla, and now he says he would hate to compete against Tesla. So to go on to this, so the Model 2, this is coming within by 2025. When that comes, that's going to be exactly the same thing as what happened when Tesla introduced the Model S. So you're going to see this tremendous change going on there. And then, as I said before, the software, core competency, Model 2 half price, and then Dojo. So Dojo.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so I said, what is Dojo? Yeah. So Dojo is a training. And what that is, that they have this massive amount of data for all these cars that have been driving around for millions and millions of miles, and that keeps growing exponentially. No one has that. So they have this data. But to crunch the data, you need compute. And compute is what NVIDIA has. And NVIDIA has a chip which is for everyone to use. I have all these different, all these different, opportunities that this company has. What our company has is they're making their own compute, and they, in 18 months, are going to have more compute than anyone in the world, Tesla. And compute is stuff that's in your basement as opposed to the chip that's in your car. So what they're going to have is they will have so much massive capacity to provide services to cars and to be able to train this data, to train your car on this data.
Right.
So what's the competitive advantage is the data, right. And the training is going to be provided by this compute, and they're going to have more of it than anyone. Nobody can catch them. Last year, by the way, you read about the number of people that are seeking jobs, and they're saying that there's too many people seeking the jobs, or whatever they say it is, with too few people. And what Tesla has is this year, I think they have 3.5 million people seeking 30,000 jobs. Last year, they had 3 million people seeking 20,000 jobs. So there's 130,000 people. So
But Ron, let's jump to another stock. I'd ask you about SpaceX, but it's privately traded, so it's privately held, so it's not something people can get into. But I do want to ask you about Moderna. We have Stefan Bancel, who's going to be joining us a little later this hour, too. Let's talk about Moderna and what you think, because this is one of the stocks you hold, and I didn't realize that before.
We have a very small investment in it right now, and he's coming to my office. Actually, I'm speaking with him on Friday. He said we're spending the morning together. But we don't have a small...
Why'd you get into it?
Well, I think it's an interesting technology. We have a very small, and the stock had gone from 300 to 100, and we had owned it, I guess, about 3 years ago, and made a double or triple or quadruple. And I thought that the opportunity was for them to be able to design to make your body fight cancer. I thought that was really interesting.
But it was the price drop that really got you interested.
And so the stock went up a lot on the basis that we're going to make a lot of money on COVID, and then we sold. And long term, though, what we thought was interesting is the opportunity that they were going to have all this cash coming in, which enabled do research to develop new drugs, which is what's happening now. That's why I think it's interesting. So I will tell you more about it after I speak to him. But by the way, in the case of SpaceX, you can invest in it. So basically, we have different mutual funds own it. Barron Partners funds own it. Barron Focused Growth Fund owns it, 8 or 10% of their portfolio. But it's really, this is going to be the largest company in the whole world. So I think Tesla in the next 7 years will be about 4 or 5 times as big as it is right now in the stock market. In this company, over the next, and that'll be worth trillions. And this company, SpaceX, is going to be worth 500 billion, 600 billion. It's now 150 billion. It's 150 billion addressing a market capability of, according to Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, $1.2 trillion of annual revenues, growing, $1.2 trillion of annual revenues. And basically, they're going to get hundreds of billions of dollars of revenues for a company right now valued in the stock market for $150 billion. And nobody can compete because nobody can make these rockets go up and come down and land again. And then in addition to that, what is threatened here is cargo. They're going to have rockets that go from Nevada to Australia. You can move ordnance, you can move air freight, anything you want, 35 minutes, anywhere in the world. And so basically, that's what's going to happen for long term in this company, but they have all these in SpaceX. The competitive advantage. So the railroad to space. Okay, next.
Finish your thought.
So the railroad to space is one, and then the second thing is the satellites. And so railroad to space is the rockets, and the satellites are how they get there cheap.
Elon is an innovator, a dreamer, a believer, and you are too, and you've made a lot of money along the way being with him. Ron, I want to thank you very much for being here with us today.